Good afternoon, and welcome to the nation's Constitution Center. I had the great privilege of being the guest leader of this outfit for a year. It's an appropriate place to make the speech I'm about to make.
Have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie? And when it comes to Donald Trump versus me, just look at us, okay? Just look at us. This idea of, slow Joe. I'm ready on day one after more than 3 years in office. Why isn't Donald Trump ready? Mr. President, wake up. I shouldn't laugh about it because, Donald Trump, just look at us both, watch us, and determine whether or not you think. I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness. And to make a judgment about who I am and what state of affairs I have, what kind of physical shape I'm in, what kind of mental shape I'm in. Because I know you all know all of this. But first of all, and so that's the hard part, getting the majority leaders in a spot that he can't, I'm talking too much, is you provide the kind of help that teach people how to know. They may not know, because if you could take care, if you were a quartermaster, you can sure and hell take care of running a department store thing, where in the second floor of the ladies department, or whatever, you know what I mean? And so one of the things that, and by the way, this whole notion of dealing with the idea that, look, but it's explicitly it's the more helpful. By the way, they may say they want to go and, I don't know, do whatever, but it may not be their skill that they acquired in the military may not in any way enhance that piece. Am I making sense?
Great.
You got to ask me some easy questions here. It requires, that old overused phrase, it takes a village to raise somebody. What we did when we were dealing with the mental health issues, Elliot, is that we said it was the same as, it had to be treated with parity with every other health problem. But PTSD and traumatic brain issues compounded the issue, and the VA is best equipped to help navigate this. As I said, it's the reason I was able to stay sequestered in my home is because some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf. Where is that, people are figuring out that whether you have a mental problem, disease, it's a disease of the brain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate it.
All right.
Sorry. I just wanted to squeeze that one in.
Where am I? Okay.
Yeah, this is it.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Lily already indicated, I'm Joe Biden's husband, Joe Biden. We should be making it easier, not harder, to make sure to make sense to, let me put it another way. It makes no sense. This idea of, slow Joe. Do I do it now? Bishop, you want me on now?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much. To fund Social Security and eliminate Obamacare in the middle of a pandemic. And to quote, I'm going to try to say this politely, is to lower the rhetoric based on division. Stop appealing to the this idea of, and perhaps most cruelly of all, if Donald Trump has his way, the complications from COVID-19, which are well beyond what they should be. It's estimated that 200 million people have died, probably by the time I finish this talk. So the way we're doing this is the way I'll end with this. The president was in Ohio, I guess a couple days ago at a rally. I don't want to misquote him. And he said at the rally, and I wrote this down. He said that we're virtually turned the corner. I carry with me, I don't have it, I gave it to my staff, but I carry with me in my pocket do I have that around anyone? Where's my staff? I gave it away anyway.
The case where we cannot let this, we've never allowed any crisis from the Civil War straight through to the pandemic of 17, all the way around 16. We have never let our democracy take second fiddle. We can both have a democracy and elections and at the same time correct the public health.
You're killing me, Smalls.
U.S. COVID-infected military, U.S. COVID-infected in America, 344,700. U.S. COVID deaths, 189,506. Military COVID-infected, 118,984. Military COVID deaths, 6,114.
Military deaths from the COVID-19 virus in the US are not 6,114. It's 7.
You're killing me, Smalls.
The way China will respond is when we gather the rest of the world that in fact believes in open trade and making sure that we're in a position that the world that we deal with WHO the right way. That in fact that's when things begin to change. That's when China's behavior is going to change. Because by the way, only 1% of you. Only 1% of you are defending 99% of us. And
Killing me, Smalls.
to up the ante on climate commitments, where he reverses the Obama-Biden fuel efficiency standards. For example, the Paycheck Protection Act. 1% of the money's gone out. 1%. 1% of the that's not the paycheck. The bill for small businesses. Lending. Mainstream lending. 1%'s gone out. This vote, this fight. I mean, this idea of slow Joe. We can't rebuild our economy and meet this climate crisis. The rapidly rising I don't know. Joe. I look forward to introducing. I would have already done it had we had not had the death. George had not been held up against that curb. I would plan on introducing it earlier, but I'll be introducing it very quickly.
Look at the sign language interpreter. Literally gave up in the middle of this, trying to interpret his gibberish.
Are you at all concerned, as Trump said, that we cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself?
We have to take care of the cure. That will make the problem worse no matter what.
So I saw that all over Twitter yesterday, and I wanted to see it in its full context, because I'm like, oh, maybe that could make some sense in its full context. And no, it didn't.
But normally when someone misspeaks, it's that they say one word is incorrect, maybe even the opposite of what they mean. I don't know one word that you can change or even flip that would make that sentence mean something.
I want to go to this next video, and this is where, needlessly, Biden calls his own statement, which was a totally fine statement, stupid.
Why doesn't he just act like a president? That's a stupid way to say it.
You know,
I guess,
Donald
but
Trump
I
was
really
asked
wish
on.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, probably best I don't.
It's painful.
I
It's so
don't-
painful. Like, why?
It
What
makes
is
me feel terrible.
happening?
Oh, hello. My name is Joe Biden. Wear a mask. They estimate that would save about close to 89, 90,000 people. My Lord, holy mackerel, I didn't know it was this bad. And, talking to, well, I won't go into it. I'm talking too much now in my opening statement. But here's the point. The point is, I believe we have a gigantic opportunity to fundamentally change possibilities. That's what this is all about. I think we got a gigantic opportunity in the year 2020 to make these changes. And with that, as my mother would say, I'm going to hush up and take any questions y'all have. And I'm going to get out of the way here. Dr. King being assassinated, major part of our city was burned to the ground. That's how I got engaged. And a lot of my support came out of that HBCU. Look, for example, I kid two of the guys that are on my co-sponsors of my campaign, African Americans. They talk themselves as Morgan men. I'm a Morgan man, and that's why the economists had predicted prior to, and I'll end with this. I'm telling you too much, but because I'm pretty passionate about this.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Vice President would like to hear from you, so I'd like to recognize someone that might have a question in this for this forum.
This is you think, oh my Lord, why do we have a 3-year-old go to school? They learn as rapidly as a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, and they just suck it all up. They just suck it all up, number one. Number two, my wife's a full-time teacher. My wife has never stopped. And it's bizarre, crazy for us. Everybody, across the board. And so that's why we also have to make sure that we provide for, this is not like, this is not something that we have, just to give you a little idea. I carry this card with me because everybody says, well, Biden's going to raise all taxes and everybody's going to be in trouble and what we're going to do here. Let me see if I can find it, if I have it here. Anyway, I have a list of how I will fund every single thing. No tax. Zero, okay? Let's give you an example. So there's much more I could talk, but my point is, it will not, and by the way, I went to undergraduate and graduate school, but I was very flattered that I think it's 14 Nobel laureates in economics just endorsed me. There's an outfit, am I telling you too much? You want me to stop? Okay. I really get it. This drives me crazy. Right now, we're in a situation where if you take a look, I got elected when I was 29 years old. I come from a very modest family. I was not bragging about it, but I was listed as the poorest man in Congress for 36 years because I didn't think you were supposed to earn any money while you're there other than your salary. But the problem was for 5 years, I watched how hard they worked. I don't know how you do it. You gotta love it. Even in good times, I think you're crazy. But I promise you, I guarantee you, if I'm elected, you'll get both the PPE, plastic shields in front of the cashiers, to a lot of things you can do to make it safe. I can really do yes or no if you ask me easy questions. This has been the most corrupt administration in modern American history. He actually has him representing him on women who accused him of rape, and I mean, where does that come from? But most of all, I would have an attorney general who understood his oath of office. Not a joke. Or go after this person, like, go after Hillary, or, what I mean, this kind of stuff. I get asked the question all the time by the press that travels with me, is the politicization of the Department of Justice.
So on behalf of all of the people that are here today, thank you for giving us your time.
Who's the fellow who runs 26 organizations for housing? The public. Because it is a gigantic, gigantic, gigantic undertaking. And unless we can get people into housing, unless we can provide for housing, unless we can stop the gentrification where people are left out, we're going to be in real trouble. I'm part of the reason I do this, and what I miss about being able to do larger engagements.
Well, Mr. Vice President, I understand we're going to have a group photo, so everybody has their mask on.
Don't jump.
You just need to listen to Joe Biden talk for 2 seconds to realize that this guy, even if he were a so-called moderate, is not going to be able to stand up to the radical forces in his party.
We have to make sure we have more social workers and psychologists in our schools. We learned drug abuse doesn't cause mental illness. Mental stress and mental illness cause drug abuse. We've learned so much that we can change so much. And that's why we ought to have to make sure that the super wealthy start paying their fair share, so we can do the things we have to do to make life better for hardworking middle-class folks.
So whatever type of mental stress Joe Biden is trying to fix, I think he needs to solve that in his own self first, and then he can maybe help the rest of the country with mental stress. I don't even really know what argument he's trying to make. He's saying drug abuse causes mental stress, or mental stress causes drug abuse, and you've got to stop the mental stress, and you've got to, I don't know, something about taxes. I don't know. You can tell that this guy can barely string a sentence together. The trouble is, the presidency is off-prompter. The presidency, if you want to lead your presidency, if you want to lead the country, you've got to be the one writing the words. You've got to be the one creating the priorities. And Trump is digging very deeply into that right now. And President Trump is now focusing on something that might be the greatest national recognition of rot at the heart of our country in well over a century. Right? He's the one seeing what's going on. He's the one leading. With Joe Biden, someone else is writing his lines for him in the teleprompter. And sometimes that teleprompter breaks, not just in speeches, not just when he's doing a convention. Apparently, they're even scripting his answers to interviews, and he can't even get through that.
There are going to be no deportations in the first 100 days of my campaign.
Let me get that right. You are going to freeze deportations?
Freeze deportations for the first 100 days. And only people will be deported are people who committed a felony while here. That's number one. Okay, I lost that.
Yeah, well, but that's good, because we could talk, you and I, on that.
Okay,
but it's
think about where we are today.
There were more.
Did you see that? So the first thing they do poorly in this interview is Joe Biden makes it clear when he's facing the prompter and when he's facing the questioner, because he's talking to the questioner asks a question, then he turns to his left and he's clearly reading something off of the camera. And then if that weren't blatant enough, I guess the prompter operator didn't get his answers up fast enough. He goes, and number two, oh, sorry, I can't get number two yet. Hold on, can you get me, can you? And then the interviewer tries to make up for it. And then Biden turns back to the interviewer. So it's clear that there's a place that he's facing when he's reading the answers, and then he turns and he faces the interviewer. And he doesn't know number two because he doesn't know what he's running on, because he doesn't know how his administration is going to be run, because it ain't going to be run by him.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, one nation, indivisible, under God, for real.
One nation, indivisible, under God, for real. You know, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the thing under the the thing.
Wait. Take your AR-14s and what? Okay, this is not okay. Hold on. All right. Hey, let's don't tell me that there's a lot of guys wanted.
It's hard to make out, but he pretty much said, "Don't tell me that, pal. Don't tell me it's not okay. I'm going to go out and slap you in the face." When journalists asked him about that spat and why he swore at a union worker, Biden seemed genuinely confused and said,
Both targeting you over this exchange this morning with the voter about guns. Any regrets about how you handled it?
Well, I'm surprised that Sanders is joining Trump. And, it's just surprising.
Was it appropriate to swear at an American?
Tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
But there's more. There's always more.
Things I'm proudest of is getting passed, getting moved, getting control of the Paris Climate Accord. I'm the guy that came back after meeting with Deng Xiaoping and making the case that I believe China would join if we put pressure on them. You had people like you had people like the former chairman and leader of the party in Germany. Go to Joe 30333. And by the way, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. My name's Joe Biden. I'm running for President of the United States. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other person. I just spoke at Dartmouth on health care at the medical school, or not, I guess I wasn't actually on the campus, but the people from the medical school were at the, I want to be clear, I'm not going nuts. I'm not sure whether it was a medical school or where the hell I spoke, but it was on the campus. I want to thank Rich Fitzgerald, the county executive, Allegheny County executive, for being here. And I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation. The president asked me to head up a cancer moonshot.
President Biden, just to be clear, would you or would you not rejoin the TPP? Yes or no?
I would not rejoin the TPP as it was initially put forward. In Guatemala, El Salvador, and to win and say in Honduras and say, look, I know I'm called middle class, Joe. It's not meant as a compliment. Means I'm not sophisticated. Let it go. And there's an area where there's an important difference between the candidates. I'm running. The country wasn't built by Wall Street bankers, CEOs, and hedge fund managers. This guy is moving to foment hate. The price for whatever the drug costs are. Well, folks, eliminate one tax loophole out of $1.6 trillion worth, $1.4 trillion worth. Out of $1.4 billion. It's hard to even say it, it's so much. And by the way, it's cost a lot of money. It cost about $740 billion over 10 years. Every single solitary person qualified in community college, increasing number of 6 to 9 million people. If you like your employer-based policy, you can keep that policy. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. If you want to be part of this campaign, pick up your phones. Pick up your phones. Now, send a text to the word United to the number 30330. 330 or 303-330 or BOO. Wait. You got it. It's on the back there. Now he's feeling the pressure of an economy that's teetering on a recession. To say that LGBTQ people have no civil rights. And immediately changed the law in the state of Delaware protecting transgender people. I took on
Putin in terms of Iraq. In terms of what was going on in Ukraine. My long friend, time friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend in and out of public life. It will cost 1/30th. 1/30th. Costs a lot of money. Almost $740 billion to do what I want to do over 10 years. But not $30 trillion. Not $30 trillion. Among many qualified people, I'm the best qualified person for this job. And the reason is not just to help people who have or in fact are likely to get Alzheimer's. Because think of what's been adopted. Milton Friedman's notion that the only obligation. But that all changed with our Republican friends in the late 80s when they adopted Milton Friedman's notion that the only obligation. We find ourselves in a position where you're in a circumstance where we've adopted Milton Friedman's notion, the conservative economist. Now, if in fact you are in a position, what was the case, you worked for Jimmy. That's why we're so special. It took courage. It took resilience. They know who we are. We have to let them know who we are. We can do it, and it's going to take billions of dollars to do it, and we can afford to do it. We can't afford not to do it. Cut in half the number of uninsured of the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Cut in half. Don't worry, I'm so serious. Children, I love to hear them. But President Trump and the demagogues around the world. But if Donald Trump is reelected, so people are figuring out there's not a damn thing we can do that we set our mind to that we can't get done. The single most stressed I was asked to speak to the American Psychiatric Association, to go over to the University of London and speak to the World Psychiatric Association. It's interesting. I just spoke to the International Society of Psychiatric, the International Organization of Psychiatrists, I forget the formal name of it, over in London because this is not a Republican talking point. The Republicans are trying to kill Obamacare. Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future. That we have $1.6 trillion worth of loopholes in the law. But I never ever thought that I'd see what I saw in Charlotte. You know, I came home from law school. Avoid having an excuse to walk by the dealer and say, no, I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do boom, boom, boom. If we just were to reinstitute the CAFE standards. And I think Secretary, I wasn't the press going to say I'm downgrading by calling him Senator Booker. The fact is that the bills that the future president here, that the senator is talking about. I was the one that suggested to the President Obama. I don't want to confuse presidents here. Look, we provide a Medicare option. That's exactly what Barack and I talked about in the beginning.
Couldn't get it through, though.
So I couldn't tell anybody but Barack. He's one of my closest friends. Invaded another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault. I got assault weapons banned for 10 years. It had to be reauthorized because of hanging chads in Florida. The last president said, no, I'm not going to reauthorize it. We need to work again with Canada and Mexico as neighbors, not as adversaries. Saks or Benettons or Nike or whatever in the market in their places where the malls. Donald Trump does pose an existential threat to this. It's not hypothetical. We can put every one of them in school, cutting in half the cost of a 4-year education. Why they do that? I ran the what they call the moonshot, dealing with cancer, and something after that set up the Biden Cancer Initiative. And here's the point: the conservative columnist, and they say, "You take my shotgun." I said, "I have 3. I now have 5 because my son died, and I have 3 of his. I have 5 shotguns." Also, have a mechanism to control drug prices. You know, it's not. We're no longer using chemical-based things. All this thing we're dealing with, cancers and other issues relating to the immune system, are bio-oriented. And by the way, the idea that NATO.
The only people who entitled to rewards are stockholders.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is deliberately and completely ignoring the legitimate authority of the Congress, and he's doing what he does with the complicity. Stop trying to keep your workers organized. By his failure to exercise any international leadership. It's about all these breakthroughs we have with dealing with the whole, immune system. I want you to know, if you look at PolitiFacts, we're no longer the wealthiest middle class in the world. It means investing much more in medical research to conquer devastating diseases like cancer and addiction and Alzheimer's. The opportunities are amazing. We are in a position to be able to lead the world like we've never been able to do it before. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? I found that the secretary, we sat together in many meetings. There's things that are worth dealing with China tough on. What presidents say matter. We also know we need teachers. My wife is a full-time teacher, taught all during when we were vice president. High-quality options. The public option will be available in my plan. We'll make sure it's not quality. We'll make sure it's only affordable. Quality that's affordable. Not the end in themselves. It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. Not those of us running for president alone. Not just activists like you. You know how many tax loopholes there are in the code now? 1,640 billion. Eliminate one. How can a person dignity be maintained? We choose truth over facts. You ever heard a president of the United States talk about law enforcement like he does today? I oversaw, as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee a long time, the FBI. Look what he talks about. But we lead by the example of our power, not just the example of our power, but the example we're out there, and it's what we say. By strengthening. We have to eliminate the funding gap that exists between minority white and majority white and non-white districts. The fact of the matter is, I'm awfully sophisticated about why, how, and who built this country. Let me say this simply and clearly. They're not national assets. Wall Street bankers, CEOs, hedge fund managers, no matter how good and decent they are, they're not the ones who built this country. That triumph of democracy and liberalism over fascism and autocracy. When I got out of school, when Bobby Kennedy and Dr. King had been assassinated in the 70s, when I got engaged. 1787, the United States Constitution. I want to publicly apologize for not being able to make it. We don't always live up to that's who we are. No other nation was founded the way we are. We hold these truths self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator. No nation has ever been founded on that principle. That was a time in the early and 60s, where it was drop out, go to Haight-Ashbury. We can do this by making sure that we're in a position that we, in fact, allow people. Time's up. I agree that everybody, once anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vice President.
But here's the deal, folks. Well, I think it shouldn't matter where your race. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We can speak out and be more straightforward. Senator John, it's not about, I know you're supporting by saying booing, but look, here's the deal. You don't have here in Miami, in Florida. You don't have it here, and that is if you keep an audience. That's why I'll end the gag rule, the global gag rule that prevents money from getting to NGOs. In terms of the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacy. And if we give Donald Trump 4 more years, we'll have a great deal of difficulty, if ever, being able to. I looked at it anyway. That's what I think my plan. I know what my plan does. Such as de-escalation studies have marked. Excuse me. There have been de-escalation studies. The reason I did what I'm doing is because there's an invasion of Hispanics. She has an expression. She teaches full-time and has taught full-time. She taught full-time as a second lady. She taught 15 credits a semester. She's never stopped teaching. She's going back in 2 weeks to teach as well, to continue to teach. 65 out of every 100 jobs today require training beyond high school. 65 out of every 100. $30 trillion. That makes it far more durable, reliable, and powerful. And partnerships built on coercion. And Lisa, you have been a great friend for a long time. And your Paul son is remarkable. You know, they also got that last year. And for folks in the working class that are below 400, they will, in fact, increase their premiums. Will increase the generosity of the premium tax credit they now get. They go to school from a middle class or upper middle class house, having heard, the estimates are as many as 4 million more words spoken. You know, the next thing we got to do here along the line to report people's dignity, restore it. We're the most powerful military, not hyperbole, most powerful military in the history of the world. That's not hyperbole. Which we as a society talk about one another. The way we've always been. Look, my wife, who is a teacher, she's teaching now. She's back in the classroom at a community college where she teaches in Northern Virginia. Things changed. You had over 40 kids shot in Kent State on a beautiful lawn by the National Guard. There are a whole lot of things, and guess what? America didn't live up to that promise for most of the people at the time. The people of color, for women. Farm ownership and cooperating loan and operating loans. I remember sometimes when my dad was restless, my mom would say, because our rooms are next to one another, I'd say, the next morning, what's wrong? I said, your dad can't sleep. He's just staring at the ceiling thinking, what happens? We have to start rewarding work, not just wealth. The first speech stood up. The former chancellor of Germany stands up. She says, we have to go it alone. International leaders spoke about it. You had people like you had people like the former chairman and leader of the party in Germany. You had Angela Merkel stand up and say how terrible it was. I mean, well, look, this is beyond the scope of anything remotely what we've seen before. We provide efficiency for appliances. That saves billions of gallons of gasoline. I mean, billions of $2.3 billion worth of, $500 billion in savings and 2-something billion metric tons of CO2 going in the air. Where an overwhelming number of families, ICE walks into a small Mississippi town and, in fact, arrests hundreds of workers. I was with a world leader in Indonesia who is a guy who is extremely well known and referred to as the Henry Kissinger of Asia. But I underestimated how deep the prejudice is in some sectors of society and how it can be unleashed. By investing $100 billion in education, in global warming efforts, it's a whole range of things. I was told when we were in office, demanding that HIV/AIDS be destigmatized and treated. And that's why we need to make post-secondary education affordable, available, and training, reducing the crushing cost of student loan debt. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. This is sort of a scenic, beautiful town. We can't afford it by just beginning to treat work, reward work as much as wealth. While Trump is pursuing a damaging and erratic trade war without any strategy, by the way.
Mr. Biden, they say these gaps in your electability.
Well, that's what we determine pretty soon, won't it?
Thanks, guys.
And this guy can't even remember where he's at half the time. Here is a clip from this past week where he forgot where he was.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Kingswood Community Center. Actually, that's the one down I used to work. It's a joke. You didn't know where we were. Anyway.
Actually, that was the one down the street. It's a joke. Anyway.
I'm back. I've been here a number of times. Last time was, I think, all the way back in 2014, but I've been here before that. I love this place. Look, what's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. I mean, this is sort of a scenic, beautiful town. The mayor's been a good guy, and everybody's been really friendly. I like Keene a lot. How many unsafe bridges do you still have here in the state of Iowa? And I was just in Ohio because they had more. My granddaughter, my other three granddaughters are down in Dubuque with my wife Jill, and Des Moines. I'm in Dubuque, in Des Moines, and with my wife Jill. And primary race for the United States presidency. You have an incredible obligation, not to me at all, to yourselves, because what you do here in Iowa. What they do in Iowa, what you do here in a primary in New Hampshire, is going to set the tone. But you know, in the 2020 census, which is now 2 censuses ago, soon to be.
Soon to be 2 censuses ago. It's every 10 years. That you're talking about 2040, the year 2040?
Well, the only thing we can do about it is be prepared. We have a whole group of lawyers who are going out to every voter registration physician in the states, the secretaries of state, making sure that they, in fact, have a game plan as to how they're going to allow the voting to take place. Voter registration physician. Never heard of that. We put in our last administration $1.5 trillion. We're going to make that $2. That brought 30 off the sideline. I mean, billion. It's about 30 billion off the sidelines. People, when they know.
Look at her. Look at her rolling her eyes. She just, in her head, she's like, I told you. I told you. The Democrats themselves, the people running the party, they know they're screwed. They know they're screwed. Rolling their eyes at their own candidate. Luckily for you, though, Joe, not many people are seeing these gaffes when they happen.
And so what I've done is I've met with via what I did this morning with the medical experts.
The vice president echoed the president last night by telling Americans that they would not be safe in Joe Biden's America.
Well, you know, look, if you think about it, Donald Trump saying you're not going to be safe in Joe Biden's America. Well, all the video being played is being played in Donald Trump's America. You know, to prove that you should be scared of Joe Biden, they're pointing to what's happening in Donald Trump's America. We're in a position where you have 50 million people needing Social Security. Needing unemployment insurance.
How about the questions asked by Anderson Cooper yesterday? Anderson Cooper, he's interviewed me a lot over the years, and I always got along with him, but they were tough interviews. Did you hear the questions? And Biden kept looking down. I think he was reading the answers off a teleprompter, right? I think he was reading the answers off a teleprompter, and that's happened before.
President Trump is right, and Joe Biden isn't just reading notes that are printed and posted off camera. His staff appears to actually be inputting talking points into a teleprompter during his interviews.
And I would like to know, what will your administration do to help them give him that chance? Thank you.
Move it up here. You know, there used to be a basic bargain in this country. Workers shared in the wealth their work helped create.
Move it up here, he says, referring to the text on the teleprompter that scrolled past the screen because the operator started it too soon. And he's obviously reading from it.
Look, one of the things that that I think is really important is that we somehow put that back on. There's somehow that we're in a situation where we
put that back on, he says, talking to his staff, telling them to put the talking points back into the teleprompter. And looky here, when old Joe was showing off some family photos to James Corden on The Late Late Show, you could see in the reflection on the glass, his teleprompter was turned on and filled with talking points for him. Of course, old Joe has a teleprompter in his basement for his occasional prepared remarks, but it certainly shouldn't be turned on during a live interview, nor filled with text, unless, well, come on, man, he's using it. Joe Biden's campaign press secretary was asked about this by Fox News' Brett Baer, and I think the answer to the question is pretty clear.
Has Joe Biden ever used a teleprompter during local interviews or to answer Q&A with supporters?
Brett, we are not going to engage. This is straight from the Trump campaign.
But yeah, they're using it.
And what it does, Brett, is it's trying to distract the American people.
They're using it. They talk about it every day. Can you say yes or no?
That's because they talk about it every day, Brett, because they don't have a coherent
Well, you have
strategy.
an answer. Yes or no?
Brett, they talk about it every day because they don't have a coherent argument for why Donald Trump deserves re-election, deserves 4 more years. We know that he lied to the American people. We know that he has not shown.
Here he is on MSNBC talking with Al Sharpton, where he appears to be reading his prepared remarks.
The resources where they're really needed.
That's exactly right. And look what's happened here. What's happened here is that the economic recovery has to be just and equitable. And we know the black communities are likely to bear a heavy economic burden of the crisis. Black workers disproportionately work in low-wage jobs, face-to-face services, hospitality, leisure industry, which are taking an especially big hit. We need federal leadership to make sure that this recovery benefits everybody, especially those who've been left behind in the past. Any jurisdiction that receives stimulus funding should be required to track and release the data on potential racial disparities. And the Treasury and the Small Business Administration should track lending to make sure minority business owners who are faced with too many barriers to credit to begin with in capital for far too long get treated justly.
In this clip, you can even hear his notes crinkling.
And in order to avoid those very high numbers, we have to do at least several things. One, we have to depend on what the president's going to do right now. And first of all, he has to wait till the cases before anything happens. Look, the whole idea is he's got to get in place things that were shortages of.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Joe Biden's miraculous challenge to Trump is that he must get things into place where there are shortages of.
Do you really feel safer under Donald Trump? COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it, more lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years. It gets down to testing. It's about testing, tracing, and treatment. And, a lot of live stream things that I'm getting used to. But it amazes me that everybody is, tuning in to.
We have Joe with a riveting story about, well, the thing.
Kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than he called it the World War II. He had the War Production Board.
If Sanjay Gupta's face doesn't say what we are all thinking. Here's another story with Joe Biden. I'd tell you what it was about, but I have no idea.
We gotta, but you gotta, we gotta reassure, look, here, my message to everybody I talk to.
I didn't quite catch that.
The Obama-Biden administration rescued the auto industry and helped them retool. We made solar energy cost competitive with traditional energy and weatherized more than 1 million homes. This is just the beginning if we get reelected.
They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing. By the way, this is my little sister Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh no, this is Val, you switched on me. This is my wife, this is my sister. They switched on me.
You guys voted early today? Because I'm going to be in, where am I tomorrow?
Florida.
Traveling tomorrow.
Do you encourage people to vote early if they can?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
If you change the tax rate, it went from 38% to 21%. If you just send it back to 38%, down if you 36%, 28%. That's what we started to try to do.
And 2, I appointed Johnson to the Academy. I just want you to know that. Let's clap for that, you stupid bastard. Man, you are a dull bunch. Must be slow here, man. No.
We talk about the Biden-Harris tax plan, a hefty price tag at that, more than $4 trillion. When you take a look at some people who may say that's sticker shock to them.
Well, first of all, the sticker shock is not a $4 trillion, whatever the number was, in increased taxes. That's why I made it a priority my entire career to work closely with you. From the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago, as well as my tenure as vice president. And what makes his wild claims and hopes, he now hopes we don't notice what he said or won't remember. And when he does follow through or doesn't do when follow through, the exact opposite.
And the future president of the United States, Joe Biden.
That's your cue, Joe. That's your cue to come. Still not there. And there.
I just have one thing to say. Hang on here.
All right.
It is important that Iowa and Nevada have spoken, but look.
Candidate for president in this race is walking off the plane, arriving in Florida just moments ago. Former Vice President Joe Biden. He's there to try to court Latino voters. Polls are showing President Trump is making gains with them, particularly with Cuban Americans. Some political analysts say that Florida's 29 electoral college votes will decide.
Empty field! Empty field!
Right now,
Because if you could take care, if you were a quartermaster, you can sure and hell take care of running a, department store thing, where in the second floor of the ladies' department or whatever. You know what I mean?
What is he talking about, James?
One of his campaign staffers had to lead him out, almost holding his hand. So you can see it's a young staffer, and he's looking in other directions. And she's holding him like it's her grandpa. Like, okay, come here, grandpa. Don't talk to the reporters. The minute the reporters put a microphone in front of his face, she says, okay, thanks, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. Get in the car, Joe. Come on, we can't have you talking to reporters.
For freedom and opportunity for everyone. And, she never failed. She was fierce and unflinching in her pursuit of the civil and legal rights of civil rights of everyone. Her opinions and her dissent are going to continue to shape the basis for a law for a generation. And tonight and in the coming days, we should focus on the loss of the justice. I look forward to doing that work together, doing it with you. It's part of how I was raised. I hope you join me and put the future within our reach, where states that, look, whatever state of life you're in, you can make a difference.
We talk about the Biden-Harris tax plan, a hefty price tag at that, more than $4 trillion. When you take a look at some people who may say that's sticker shock to them.
Well, first of all, the sticker shock is not a $4 trillion, whatever the number was, in increased taxes. To up the ante on climate commitments, where he reverses the Obama-Biden fuel efficiency standards. The Obama-Biden administration rescued the auto industry and helped them retool. We made solar energy cost competitive with traditional energy and weatherized more than 1 million homes, which is just the beginning if we get reelected. But these things are called, there's a virus. And a virus is what we're dealing with now. It's a particularly lousy kind of virus. It's like flu on steroids. It's a really bad kind of flu. If that's raining outside, come on in, guys. I don't want anybody out there. Are you guys in the rain? Or is that not rain? I thought that was rain. Lonnie knows I believe this every fiber of my being. We're posed
What I propose is it can be done. Critical laws like the PRO Act to strengthen collective bargaining. On politics like prevailing and look. I guess I'm taking too much time, but you know.
Yeah, you know all of this anyway. I don't even know why I'm bothering.
Folks, it's my coach used to say it's go-to time. It's go time now. And fourth, you need premium pay. Congress has to pass a comprehensive premium pay plan that honors your heroism now, not yesterday. We needed yesterday. I unveiled a plan to strengthen our caring economy. But you know, in the 2020 census, which is now 2 censuses ago, soon to be. Welcome to Kingswood Community Center. Actually, that's the one down I used to work. It's a joke. You didn't know where we were. Anyway. But believe me, truly, it's a battle we can and we will win if we act together. Happy 4th. Don't listen to anybody who tells you not to wear a mask. It matters. It matters, it matters, it matters. We're going to overcome this. Listen to what the scientists say, not the politicians. And I'm a politician, I know, but I'm listening to the scientists. And I had a nurse nurses at Walter Reed Hospital who would bend down and whisper in my ear. Wow. They'd go home and get me pillows. They would make sure they'd actually, probably nothing ever taught in, you can't do it in the COVID time, but they'd actually breathe in my nostrils to make me move.
Mr. Vice President, you said that they were wrong in thinking that, but that is their feeling. So give them a sense of why.
No, there's not evidence. No, that's not true. You show me a poll that says that.
I didn't say any poll.
Show me
I
a poll.
said that.
Well, you said they think.
I said
speaking for young people.
No, Mr. Vice President, you're going to have to listen. I said I had an email from a couple of young people today. I didn't mention the poll.
All right.
And I said that was their concern.
It's a legitimate concern. They should be skeptical. Show me
the poll. Show me the poll. Because obviously polls are very, very reliable. We know this from the 2016 election.